I want you to picture a scenario. You walk into a meeting at work. Maybe you're 5 minutes late, maybe you're right on time, but as soon as you cross the threshold, you just stop. You haven't heard anyone speak, you haven't seen the agenda, but you instantly know this project is dead.
The vibe check.
Exactly, the vibe check. It's almost physical. The air feels heavy, the room feels cold, you just know. But then your boss turns to you and says, prove it. Give me the data points right now that show this project is failing.
And you just freeze. Because you don't have a spreadsheet. You don't have a list. You just have a feeling.
And in that moment, you feel incompetent. You feel irrational, You think, I must be making this up. But what if you aren't? What if that instant knowing is actually a highly sophisticated form of intelligence that we've just kind of collectively decided to ignore?
And that is the absolute core of our deep dive today. We're looking at this fascinating and honestly kind of biting article by Jaime Hoerricks, PhD. It's titled, "The Day Psycholinguistics Let Gestalt Die."
And don't let that term psycholinguistics scare you off. We are not going to spend the next 20 minutes diagramming sentences, I promise. This is about something much, much bigger.
It is. It's about how we think, and maybe more importantly, how we're allowed to think.
Yeah, and why the modern world is so obsessed with forcing us to show our work, even when showing the work kind of destroys the insight itself.
It's a really interesting mix. It's part history lesson, part conspiracy theory almost, and part really vulnerable memoir.
It really is. The author makes this huge accusation right out of the gate. They argue that the field of psycholinguistics, which is, the science of how our brains process language, didn't just accidentally drift away from big picture thinking.
No, they say it was a hit job.
A hit job. I mean, the phrase Hoerricks uses is actively abandoned.
Right. Psycholinguistics did not merely overlook Gestalt processing. It actively abandoned it at a politically convenient moment.
That phrase, politically convenient, it makes it sound like a smoky backroom deal. But before we get into the why, we need to define the what. What's the victim here? What is Gestalt?
So, in this context, Gestalt basically means pattern thinking. It's the ability to perceive the whole before you perceive the individual parts.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, think about recognizing a face. When you see your best friend, you don't go, okay, there's a nose, 2 brown eyes, a mouth. You just see your friend instantly.
The identity arrives fully formed.
Exactly. Or music. You hear the melody. You don't hear a sequence of isolated frequencies and then do the math to realize it's a song you know.
Right.
That's Gestalt. It's a felt coherence. You grasp the entire shape of the information all at once. And Hoerricks is arguing this used to be a respected way of understanding the mind. But then something changed.
We decided the parts were more important.
The parts became more important than the whole, and this is where that politically convenient idea comes in.
So why would science, which is supposed to be about finding the truth, abandon a way of thinking that is clearly real? I mean, we all experience it. Why get rid of it?
Because you can't control it.
Explain that.
Hoerricks argues that the field shifted toward what they call analytic, modular, and governable models of mind.
Governable. That is such a specific, almost bureaucratic word to use for the human brain.
It is the key to the whole argument. I mean, think about the era when this was all happening. The rise of the computer age, the cognitive revolution.
Oh, okay.
Scientists wanted to see the brain as the kind of computer. And how do you understand a computer? You look at its modules. Input A leads to output B.
Right, it's reductionist. You break the machine down into its component parts to see how it works.
Which is fine for machines. But Hoerricks says when you apply that to people, it's not just about science anymore. It becomes about management. It's about, and this is another great phrase, metric-driven power.
Metric-driven power. Okay, now it sounds like we're talking about my annual performance review.
We are. That is exactly the point. The analytic model breaking things down into tiny logical steps is perfect for institutions. It allows for institutional control. If I can break your thinking down into steps, I can grade you, I can assess you, I can pay you based on how many steps you completed.
But if I just say, I see the pattern, I just know the answer, that's a nightmare for an administrator.
It's ungovernable.
Yeah.
You can't put a number on an epiphany. You can't standardize a gut feeling. So the institutions, universities, corporations, you name it, they favored the model that produced data they could use. They favored the list of parts.
Over the felt coherence.
Exactly. So the argument isn't that we stopped studying Gestalt because it was wrong. We stopped because it was messy.
We traded truth for manageability.
We did.
Yeah.
We decided that if something couldn't be measured in a modular step-by-step way, then it just wasn't scientific.
That is incredibly cynical. But when you look at how we run everything, from standardized testing in schools to, hiring practices, it holds up. We are obsessed with the rubric.
The rubric is the god of the modern world. And Hoerricks is saying this obsession has a real cost. It's not just some academic debate. It fundamentally changes how we value human intelligence.
Which brings us to the really personal part of this, because the author, Jaime Hoerricks, identifies as someone who still thinks this old way, a Gestalt thinker in an analytic world.
And this is the section called Opening a Personal Frame. Honestly, this is where the article stops feeling like a critique and starts feeling like a defense of the soul.
It's beautiful writing. Hoerricks describes their own process, saying, I notice it most when I'm trying to explain how I know something, not what I know, the knowing itself.
And how do they describe that knowing?
The pattern arrives first.
The pattern arrives first.
Yeah.
Just sit with that for a second. In the analytic model, the pattern is the result. You connect the dots, you do the math, and then you see the picture.
But Hoerricks is saying, no, I see the picture first.
Yeah. And the metaphors used are just stunning. The one that really stuck with me was emotional weather.
Oh, yes. Emotional weather. It suggests that information has an atmosphere. It has a temperature, a pressure.
So going back to your meeting example, walking into that room, you aren't analyzing facial micro-expressions or vocal tones in a sequence.
No, you're stepping into a climate.
Exactly. Hoerricks writes that it's an underlying rhythm, tying people, histories, tensions, and unspoken meanings together.
That is so complex. Tying people, histories, tensions. A computer would just choke on that. It needs those variables separated. But the human mind, or at least the Gestalt mind, just swallows it whole.
And understands it instantly. The conclusion is fully formed.
But here's the tragedy, right? You have this incredible superpower. You can walk into a room and read the emotional weather in a second. You know the truth. But then you have to speak.
And that's what they call the translation problem.
Yeah, Hoerricks writes, I often have to reverse engineer the explanation, breaking a whole into fragments small enough to be recognized as proper reasoning.
Just think about the energy that takes. You're not just doing the work. You're doing the work, and then you're inventing a fake secondary process to explain the work to people who can't see what you see.
It's like, okay, imagine you have a helicopter. You fly over a maze, you see the exit instantly, you land at the exit, but the judges say, nope, disqualified, you didn't walk the path. So you have to go back to the start, put the helicopter away, and trudge through every dead end just to prove you know where the exit is.
That is a perfect analogy, and it feels dishonest, doesn't it? Hoerricks calls it translating from a language that came before the one I'm expected to speak.
A language that came before. That brings us to this idea of old versus new, because the author is insistent that this isn't a glitch. They aren't doing it wrong.
No, they're doing it the human way. If you spend your whole life being told, show your work, or that's not logical, you start to feel like you're broken, a mutation. But Hoerricks pushes back so hard on that.
They write, there is a quiet sense I've carried for years, that this way of thinking is not a glitch. It feels older.
Older than the assessment rubrics.
That line, older than the assessment rubrics, it's just such a burn on modern society.
It really puts things in perspective. I mean,
yeah.
Assessment rubrics, standardized tests, quarterly reports, these are inventions of the last 100 years or so. They're blips in human history.
That's right.
But pattern recognition, reading the emotional weather, that's primal. That's evolution.
Exactly. If you're a hunter-gatherer on the savannah and you see a shadow move in the grass, you do not have time for a modular analysis. You don't say, hypothesis A, it is the wind.
Hypothesis B, it is a predator. No, you run. You feel the shape of the danger and you react.
You didn't have Gestalt processing, you didn't survive. We are here because our ancestors could read patterns instantly.
So in a way, we've built a civilization that penalizes our most basic survival mechanism. We've built a system that distrusts it because it's fast and it's invisible and it's personal.
And the modern world wants things to be slow, visible, and public. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Because intuition can be wrong, can't it? We have biases. We have prejudices. Sometimes I feel like someone's angry with me, but really they're just hungry. Isn't the analytic method a safeguard against us just making things up?
Absolutely. And I don't think Hoerricks is arguing we should abolish logic or verification. You know, if you're building a bridge, I don't want you to just feel that the physics works.
Right. Please do the math.
Please do the math. But the argument is that we've swung the pendulum so far the other way that we're denying the existence of the pattern entirely. We're forcing people to only use the linear method, even when it's too slow or too shallow to capture the reality.
It's the difference between checking the math on the bridge and understanding why we're building the bridge there in the first place.
Or realizing that the emotional weather of the community means they will never use that bridge, no matter how sturdy it is. The analytic model completely misses the context. It misses the meaning.
And the person who sees that meaning, the Gestalt thinker, is silenced, or they just burn out trying to translate their insight into a spreadsheet.
Hoerricks talks about the exhaustion of it. It's a kind of masking. You're constantly chopping yourself up into little bits to fit into the boxes the institution gives you. And that kills the joy of discovery. It kills the flow.
Chopping yourself up, that is such a visceral image. It implies violence, that the system is doing violence to the way our brains naturally work.
And it connects right back to that idea of control. A chopped up thing is easy to cook. A whole living thing is harder to handle. The institution wants employees and students and citizens who are modular.
Modular, like Lego bricks.
Exactly. Replaceable. Interchangeable.
Yeah.
If your job is just to follow steps A through F, I can swap you out for anyone. But if your value comes from your unique ability to synthesize people, histories, and tensions into a sudden insight, well, you're unique. And uniqueness is a problem for bureaucracy.
This is starting to sound like a defense of humanity against the machine.
In a way, it is. And as we move deeper into the age of AI, this distinction becomes even more critical. AI is the ultimate analytic thinker. It's purely modular, purely data-driven.
It has no felt coherence. It doesn't have a gut.
It creates the illusion of a whole, but it's really just predicting the next word based on probability. It doesn't understand the emotional weather.
So if we train ourselves to think like machines, if we suppress our own Gestalt nature, we're basically training ourselves to be second-rate computers.
That's it. We're competing on the machine's turf.
Yeah.
And we will lose. The one thing we can do that the machine can't is this older way of thinking. The deep, instant pattern recognition. The vibe check.
So by abandoning Gestalt, society didn't just make a methodological error. It made a strategic error. We threw away our competitive advantage.
We threw away the map and decided to only look at the coordinates. And now we wonder why we feel lost.
This is giving me a lot to think about just with how I communicate my own ideas. I think a lot of us have that fear. If I can't prove it linearly, I shouldn't say it.
That's the conditioning. That's the rubric talking.
So what's the alternative? If you're a listener who identifies with this, if you're that person who sees the solution instantly and then dreads the meeting where you have to explain it, what do?
I think the first step is just validation. Just hearing Hoerricks say, "This is not a glitch," is incredibly powerful. Acknowledge that your felt sense is data. It's just a different kind of data.
Don't gaslight yourself.
Right. When the pattern arrives first, welcome it. Don't immediately shove it away because you haven't done the steps yet.
And maybe we need to get better at the translation part, but without losing the soul of the idea.
Or we need to change the culture of listening. If you're in a position of leadership, you have to ask yourself, do I create space for intuition? Or do I demand this spreadsheet before I'll even listen to an idea?
That's a big ask for the corporate world. Make space for intuition.
It is. But look at the most successful innovations. They rarely come from following a checklist. They come from someone seeing a connection that wasn't there before. They come from Gestalt.
So if we want to solve the big problems, the messy, ungovernable problems, we might need to stop asking people to show their work and start asking them what they see.
We need to value the shape of the situation, not just the metrics.
We've covered a lot of ground. From, the academic history of linguistics all the way to the modern boardroom.
It's a testament to the article. It pulls on a thread that unravels the whole sweater of modern intellectual life.
I love that image, unraveling the sweater. It feels very Gestalt.
I try.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question. The next time you just know something, stop. Pay attention to that feeling. Is it emotional weather? Is it a felt coherence?
And ask yourself, are you going to trust it? Or are you going to force it into a rubric?
Are we mistaking measurable for true?
That is the ultimate question. Just because you can count it doesn't mean it counts. And just because you can't explain it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Jaime Hoerricks suggests that the pattern implies a truth that the parts can never fully capture. Maybe it's time we started listening to the pattern again.
Keep your eyes open for the shape of things.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.